And good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and we're doing an overall review, summary of the things that we have seen in our study of the Olivet Discourse that has taken us over 2 years. 800 and 800 and some videos. I forgot. I think this is 822, something like that. Do the math. Yeah. Uh, 3, 4 videos a week. That's a lot of videos. So, yesterday and even last Wednesday as well, we talked about the abomination of desolation and then the Great Tribulation. We mentioned the Great Tribulation yesterday. Now, I want to drive the point home that Jesus said his apostles, when you see the abomination of desolation. So let me finish my discussion of the abomination of desolation by taking note of Daniel 9 and Daniel chapter 12. Okay? In Daniel chapter 9, we're given a prophecy of the 70 weeks of Daniel. 70 weeks are determined upon your people and your holy city, Daniel 9:24. To put away sin, to make the atonement, to finish the transgression, to seal vision and prophecy, etc., to anoint the Most High, bring in everlasting righteousness. 6 constituent elements are listed in Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? In Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27, at the time of the destruction of the city and the temple, the abomination of desolation shall be set up in the temple, or as some translations say, on the pinnacle of the temple. Here's what I want you to see. Now, I called attention yesterday to the fact that some former preterists have taken the position of the liberal scholars, the scholars who deny biblical inspiration. Now, they claim to believe in the inspiration of Scripture, but they deny, please catch the power of this, Sam Frost has denied. Now, what his position today is, I don't know. But in a Facebook exchange of a little while back, he said that Daniel chapter 9 is not messianic. I have a record of it. So, Daniel 9, supposedly, according to the former preterist, according to liberal scholars such as John Collins, tell us that Daniel chapter 9 foretold the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, look, make no mistake, Daniel chapter 8 foretold the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. I don't have a problem in the world with that. Daniel 9 doesn't. How do I know that? Well, there are a variety of different reasons, but let me give just one or two, maybe three. Okay, but the whole point about it is about the abomination of desolation. Now remember, Daniel 9:26 says that the city and the temple would be destroyed. The people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. So twice we are told Jerusalem and the temple was going to be destroyed. Well, as Brant Petrie says in his magnificent book, Jesus, Tribulation, and the End of Exile, says this is the Achilles heel of those who take the position that Daniel 9 is about the time of Antiochus Epiphanes because, Petrie points out, Antiochus Epiphanes nor his general Apollonius did not destroy the city or the temple. Period. End of story. So if you have a prophecy here that said the city and the sanctuary will be destroyed, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, but the city and the sanctuary were not destroyed at the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, then guess what? Either Daniel failed or you got the wrong application. of the prophecy. Now, here's the deal. Men such as John Collins and those who accepted his view, and there are many, many others, the liberal scholars deny. Are you aware of this? Liberal scholars deny such a thing as actual verbal plenary inspiration. Now, what that means is, here's the end result of that. Since there is no such thing as actual, infallible, inspired prophecy, then if you have a text that makes a prophecy that historically came true, then that must mean that that written text was actually written after the event and is now writing what he wrote to make it appear as if it was written beforehand and foretold that event. One commentator that I have in my files said, how do we know parts of Daniel are true prophecies written beforehand? We know that they were genuine prophecies. Now you think, well, Preston, he's calling them genuine prophecies. Yeah, but listen to me. How does this scholar say we know that they're genuine prophecies? Oh, because they failed. You catch the power of that? You have to understand that the view that Daniel was not a prophet, Daniel 9 is not messianic, Daniel contains no messianic prophecies of Jesus. You have to understand that view was begun by an anti-Christian man by the name of Porphyry in the 3rd century. He came up with that interpretation to combat Christians who were using Daniel as an apologetic proof that Jesus is Messiah. Okay? And liberal scholars through the centuries have latched onto that and said, yeah, see, this proves Daniel is not messianic. Yeah. And it's a shame, in my estimation, for whatever that's worth, that some who call themselves Christians have adopted that same position. Now, let me point out another fact or two from Daniel chapter 9 to prove that it is messianic, that it was not talking about the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. Okay, Daniel chapter 9 says that after the 69th week, Messiah shall be cut off in the midst of the week. Okay? This Mashiach, this anointed one. By the way, I had a guy pop up the other day, and he says the term Mashiach, anointed one, does not mean Messiah. Yeah, it does. How anyone could make such an ill-informed claim is rather beyond me. Nonetheless, takes all kinds, I guess. So anyway, here we have the prophecy of the prediction of the Messiah, of anointed one, being cut off in the middle of the week, i.e. the 70th week. But we're told that that's Onias the 4th. Now, some say it's the 3rd, some say it's the 4th. Do your own research on it. I'm calling him Onias the 4th. Okay? Onias the 4th was one of the very last duly qualified holy priests that were therefore qualified to offer the atonement. Okay. Onias was deposed by one of his relatives by the name of Jason, and another man by the name of Menelaus. He was forced to flee for his life. So he goes down to Egypt. And by the way, he evidently established another temple down there. But while he was there, nonetheless, a man by the name of Andronicus, being bribed to do so, managed to deceive Onias to come out of his sanctuary. Now, sanctuary wasn't a little hut. This is a highly fortified area, okay? with strength. But Andronicus was convinced by Menelaus to draw Onias out. Andronicus deceived Onias. Onias left his sanctuary, his safe place, and Menelaus killed him. Now, Menelaus also, get this, after Onias was deposed, gotten rid of, Jason took over the priesthood by bribing Antiochus Epiphanes. Said, hey, give me the office of priesthood, I'll just give you tons of gold. Antiochus Epiphanes, always in need of gold, said, oh, cool, sure, here, priesthood is yours. Well, Menelaus wanted the office of priesthood as well. He knew that Onias was going to be a continuing threat to him as long as he was alive. So once again, he used Andronicus, bribed him to get Onias out of his sanctuary and killed him. Went to Antiochus Epiphanes and said, hey, I'll give you even more money if you make me the high priest and kick Jason out. Antiochus Epiphanes said, ain't no problem for me. Jason was kicked out. Menelaus was made the high priest. Now, why do I go over all this? How is this relevant to our discussion of the abomination of desolation and the abomination of desolation? Oh, believe me, it is all absolutely related. Because you see, Jesus said the abomination of desolation was going to be set up in his day, his time. Daniel chapter 9 foretold the setting up of the abomination of desolation at the time of the destruction of Jerusalem. Antiochus Epiphanes never destroyed the city. But to demonstrate further, to continue, that Daniel 9 was indeed and in fact Messianic, I'm demonstrating that the events of Antiochus Epiphanes of his day and his time did not fit what Daniel predicted. So if we're going to accept inspiration, we're going to choose what Daniel said. So here's the deal. Jason was not a qualified high priest, therefore he could not make the atonement. Menelaus was not a qualified high priest. I mean, after all, they're both guilty of murder. They're guilty of bribery. And Jewish law forbade them, therefore, to be high priests. Guess what? They could not make the atonement. And yet we're told, Daniel 9:24 was fulfilled in the time of Onias because Onias was killed. By the way, the chronology there doesn't work. It's about 50 years off. But all of that aside, neither Jason nor Menelaus could make the atonement as demanded by Daniel 9:24 in the time of the 70th week as proposed by Porphyry and the liberal skeptics. Finally, Daniel was told 70 weeks are determined to bring in everlasting righteousness. In my Facebook page, Facebook discussions with Sam Frost on Daniel chapter 9, when he insisted that Daniel 9 was not messianic and that it was in fact fulfilled in the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, I asked him, what was the everlasting righteousness that was established in the days of Antiochus Epiphanes? Mr. Frost refused to answer. That's 2 or 3 years ago. He still hasn't answered. You know why? Because guess what? Everlasting righteousness was not established in the days of Antiochus Epiphanes. Sorry. Period. End of story. So when nothing that Daniel foretold for the 70 weeks happened in the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, and yet we're being told about the destruction of the city and the temple, and from the time of the Babylonian Empire, or Babylonian destruction of Jerusalem in BC 586, until the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, there was no destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. Absolutely no destruction. Conquered? Yes. destroyed? No. So in Jesus' generation, you had the abomination of desolation. By the way, Josephus pointed to several events during the time of the Jewish war as possible candidates for the abomination. I'm not going to get into those particular details, but the point of fact is, here's Josephus, a Jew, who identified different events during the siege and the war as being the fulfillment of Daniel. Daniel 9, Daniel chapter 12. And let me make this real fast addendum here. In Daniel chapter 12, during the time of the end, the time of the appointed consummation, Daniel chapter 12, verse 4, the Suntalia Kairu, consummation of the end, of the appointed days, literally. Guess what would happen? Oh, the abomination of desolation would be set up. So twice, Daniel tells us about the abomination of desolation. Daniel chapter 9, in the days of the destruction of the city and the temple. Daniel chapter 12, the abomination would be set up. When would all of Daniel chapter 12 take place, which includes the Great Tribulation? Oh, the climax of that would be when the power of the holy people is completely shattered. Daniel chapter 12, verse 7. And folks, that was not in the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. Anybody that would argue that the power of the holy people was completely shattered in the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, I'm sorry, they're simply not being honest with history or the text. So I hope you can see some problems here with the attempts that are made to take Daniel chapter 9, Daniel chapter 12, out from consideration of application to Matthew 24, verse 15 through 21. Daniel did foretell those days, the days of the first century. That means abomination of desolation and great tribulation had to have occurred in the first century. And guess what? I'm going to prove that for you tomorrow as we continue our overview and review of our study of the Olivet Discourse. I'll see you on the flip side.